back to my channel. So for this tutorial, I'm going to show you guys how to make a jumpsuit with halter neck. So let's get into the video. For this, you might need about 3.5 yards or 4 yards depending on your size, or maybe even 3 yards. So let's start. So the first thing I'm going to do is to cut. I've cut out the pattern I'm going to be using. So as you can see, I have my front and my back bodies here. My back bodies is wider than my front bodies by about 1.5 or 1 inch for my zip allowance, because there's going to be zip at the back. So the width I'm using here is just my bust measurement divided by 4 plus extra 1 inch for seam allowance, and then the back is wider by about 1.5 or 1 inch. So let's start. So the first thing you're going to do is, we're cutting everything together. So you see my front panel is placed on my back panel and it's folded into 2 this way. So as you can see, I have 4 pieces here. So let's start cutting. So guys, the first thing I'm going to do is to put in my shoulder measurement, which is shoulder divided by 2, which is 8. So for me, my shoulder is 16 divided by 2 is going to be 8. I'm going to mark that here. Come down here, put in my armhole divided by 2 is going to be 20. So half of it is going to be 10. That's why I'm marking 10 here. So I'm going to come down here, give it my curve for my armhole here, and then the next thing I'm going to do is my bust measurement divided by 4 plus 1. So my bust measurement is 42 divided by 4 is 10.5 plus 1, that's going to be 11.5, which is what I have here as the fold of my fabric. Then I'm going to go down to my waist. My waist is 36 divided by 4 is 9 plus extra 2 inches, 1 inch for my darting, 1 inch for my seam allowance. That's going to be 11. I'm going to mark that here, and then I'm going to connect these 2 ends together, just like how we draw our normal bodies. So come down here, mark our 1 inch here, and then go in here, mark our neckline, which is going to be, I'm going to use 3 inches by 3 inches, right? And then I'm going to connect it this way, give it a curve this way, right? And then the next thing you're going to do is to mark your back neckline. So come down by 1 inch, that's going to be your back neckline. You're going to connect it this way. The next thing you're going to do is to just mark, measure out what you have. So just put your tape this way, measure your back neckline. So my back neckline is actually 5 inches. So B for back is 5 inches. We'll come back to this later. And then you're going to measure out what your front neckline is. So I'm going to measure that out. And my front neckline is also 5 inches. So you're starting from the top and you're measuring the curve that you have. So my back neckline is actually 5 inches also. So the next thing I'm going to do is to mark I'm going to connect my shoulder slant. And then on that line, I'm going to, on the line of my curve for my neckline here, for my front neckline, you see, the 3 inches one is my front neckline, the 1 inch is the back neckline. I'm going to come down 1 inch on that line for my front neckline, which is somewhere here. On this curve for my front neckline, you see, this distance here, not the back one, just on my front neckline, this curve here, I came down 1 inch here, and then on this 1 inch here, I'm going to connect it to the curve of my armhole, because remember, we're making an halter neck dress. So I'm going to curve it this way and then blend it back into my armhole. So this is now, I'm going to cut all this out and I'm going to be left with this. I've cut out the neckline. So now the next thing I'm going to cut is just to cut this straight line. I've cut out my back neck, I've cut out the front neck, so I'm just going to cut out this straight line all the way to the back here. And I've also gone ahead and cut out the waist. So starting here, you're going to go ahead and cut this out. So this here now is our new neckline. So I'm going to split open the back for my zip allowance, right? And then the next thing you're going to do is to put in your dart. So to put in our dart, you're going to come in by 4 inches, which is basically your breast point divided by 2. So after that, I'm going to mark from my shoulder to my bust is 10, but your dart normally stops 1 inch before your dart. So for me, that's going to be 12. And then on this line that is 12 here, I'm going to just connect this 4 inches all the way down, mark half an inch on each side, and then connect it. So this is going to be my dart. And then I'm going to notch this at the back so that I can know where the 4 inches is at the back, because I can't put in the 4 inches considering I have this zip allowance here. It might confuse me. So from this notch that I've made here, if you can see this notch here, I'm going to connect my back dart all the way to my chest line. So I'm going to put in my dart here. You see your dart at the back is going to be longer than the front dart, so 1/2 inch on each side. So that's basically it for the top part of this jumpsuit. We'll still come back and finish up the neckline. Remember what you wrote here. Your back is 5, the front is 5. Leave this measurement for now. So I'm going to set this aside. So basically what you're going to do is you go ahead. If you want, you can use bias to finish up these 2 ends here, and then put in your 2 darts, close up the side. So guys, to cut the pants, so what you're going to do is to fold your fabric into 2. So basically, to fold your fabric, you need the width you're going to fold here will be your hip measurement divided by 4 plus extra, like let's say 4 or 5 inches, just so that you have enough seam allowance. You can trim off the rest later. So just divide your hip measurement by 4. Whatever you get, add like 5 inches or 4 inches to it. That's what you will need here. So but use 5 inches to be safe, right? So what I'm going to do now, I've folded mine into 2. So my hip measurement is 48 divided by 4 is 12, right? So 12 plus extra, but what I have here is about 16.5. So I used 4.5 inches extra for mine. So the next thing you're going to do after that is to go ahead and mark 1/2 inch at the top of your pants, right? This 1/2 inch here is going to be just my seam allowance for the top part, to attach this top part of my pants, right? So I'm just going to mark like 1/2 inch here. So all my measurements will start after this line now. So then after that, the next thing you are going to do is to, so guys, this line I made here is just from my waist to my hip, which is 10, right? So you're going to measure your jumpsuit from your shoulder to your waist for the half length, and then you're going to place that tape back from where your half length, your waist is, and then measure that point to your hip. So for me, that's 10. So the next thing you're going to put in now is your crotch. I'll insert how you take that measurement. So that's normally like maybe 2 inches below your hip line, so which for me I'm using 12 inches. But normally when you're making a jumpsuit, they normally come down by like 1 inch, just so you will have ease at the crotch, so that it's not like digging into your skin. So, or you come down by like 1/2 inch. So I'm going to just use 12.5 here. So the next thing I'm going to mark, or you can still use the 12 inches on the dot if you want it like fitted. So I'm going to mark mine, and then, so guys, after that, the next thing you should do now is to go ahead and put in the length you want, right? So for me, I'm using 40 inches length. So plus I'm going to add extra, maybe I'm using 40 inches length, but I'm going to add like extra 1 inch to it, right? So that's going to be 41. I'm going to use 1 inch to fold it. If you want, you can use 2 inch to fold yours. I'm just going to use 1 inch to fold mine, because this 40 inches is even too long for me. So this 41, it doesn't matter. So the next thing you're going to do at this point, you can go in and put in all your measurements, but if you want, you can also put in like your thigh measurement. That is, if you want the jumpsuit fitted at your thigh, and then it flares out, like fitted a little bit from your thigh, or except you want it fitted all the way from your hip, your hip, and then it just flares out straight down. But I want mine a little fitted on my thigh, so I'm going to go ahead and put in my thigh line, which normally sometimes is like 3 inches below the crotch line. So that should be somewhere at 16. So I'm going to mark that in here. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do now is to start inserting my measurement. So on this my hip line now, I'm going to divide my hip measurement by 4. 48 divided by 4, that's going to be 12. I'm going to add extra 1 inch to it. That's going to be my seam allowance. So that will be 13, right? I'm going to mark that 13 here on this line here, right? So I'm going to extend this 13 all the way to the top, right? I'm going to mark it here, 13, and then I'm going to mark again 13. And then I'm going to connect this line down. So guys, as you can see, I connected it all the way down to my crotch. So the next thing you're going to do now is to put in your so you're going to go ahead and divide your hip measurement by 4. So let's say my hip measurement is 48, right? Divided by 4 is 12. And then that whatever you got after dividing it by 4, divide it again by 4. So that 12 that I got here, I'm dividing it again by 4. So that's going to be 3. So make sure that you have that 3 inches for your crotch. So that's why I have 3 inches here for on my crotch line. So now you're going to connect it this way. So this is going to be my crotch for my pant this way. So now we are going to go back and put in our waist measurement. So my waist measurement is 36, divided by 4 is 9, plus extra 2 inches is 11. So I'm going to mark that here, and then I'm going to connect this here to my hip line. So you're going to connect this waist measurement to the hip line. So I'm going to just put that in here, connect it all the way to the here. And remember, we have our seam allowance already at the hip. You divided your hip measurement by 4 and you added extra 1 inch to it. So we already have our seam allowance here. So all you have to do is to connect this point down to this point immediately. I'm using a different method. For those that have seen my romper video, I'm using a totally different method for the pants, for this long pants here. So in sewing, there are different ways to do it. All that matters is that you still get the same result. So the next thing I'm going to do is to get the measurement here, like the measurements all the way from your crotch to the end of your fabric here. So for me, that's about 16. Half of 16 is going to be 8. So I'm going to place that 8 here, and then I'm going to mark that 8 on this line, on my waistline, hip line, and the crotch line, like a straight line all the way down. So guys, the next thing you're going to do is, you remember this is your hip line, your crotch line, and then this is your thigh line, right? Your thigh. So on this thigh line now, what you can do is to go, you're going to measure the uppermost part of your thigh, right? So for me, that's 30 divided by 2, that's going to be 15. And then that 15, you're going to, whatever you got, you're going to add 1 inch to it. So you're going to add 1 inch to it, and then, so for me, if I add 1 inch to it, it's going to be 16, right? So on that 16, you're going to divide that 16 into 2 again. So let me say it again. Your thigh measurement divided by 2, you add 1 to it. That 1 inch is your seam allowance. Now whatever you get, you're going to divide it into 2 again. So for me, my thigh was 30, divided by 2 is 15, plus 1 is 16, and then I'm dividing that 16 into 2. So I'm going to have 8. So I'm going to place that 8 at the center of this line, and then mark whatever I got at this end, and then on this end again. So you see, mine doesn't make any difference because it's still the same as my hip line. So but someone with a smaller thigh, it might have like a huge difference. Maybe this much, it might curve it this much, and then curving this much, right, coming down this way. And then you can use it to now narrow down, draw a straight line from this point to the end of your pant. From this point to the end of your pant, you narrow down the end of your pant. Or if you want, once you finish on this crotch line, on your crotch line, just cut out everything straight. This one is just like extra, like if you want the thigh to be like fitted more, so you can just try to do this thigh line thing that I'm talking about. But if not, you can just go ahead and cut everything out at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and start cutting mine. I don't want to have the end of my pant too wide, so I think I might just subtract 1 inch on this end here, and then also 1 inch on this end here, and then connect mine. So guys, I've cut out my front panel. So let me before I forgot, so you're supposed to put in your dart. So I'm going to come in here by 4 inches, which is the same that we use for the top part here. Come in by 4 inches, not from the side, because this is the hip part of the pant. You're going to do it from the center part of the pant, which is where the crotch is. Come in by 4 inches from that point there, and then you're going to go down by, so you're going to stop 2 inches before your hip line. So my hip line is 10. I'm going to stop 2 inches before that. So which means I'll stop at 8 here. So let me be sure that that's 2 inches. Yeah. So you're going to connect it all the way to the top here. And then you're going to mark ½ an inch on each side and then blend it in. So this is going to be your dart. I'm going to notch it so that I'll see it on the on two sides. So now let's cut the back of the pant. So guys, the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut the back. So we folded our fabric into two, and as you can see, the back is also wider than the front, so it's going to be wider by like 5 inches or so. So you see I have some space here and I also have some space here. So what you're going to do is to go ahead and mark about, so I'm going to go in by the crotch and mark like 2.5 inches here, extension of this front crotch, right? So this is extension of the crotch from the front. And then I'm also going to go up here. You see that line that we made here, this straight line that we made here from the front. So you're going to divide half of it, right? So half of it was for me, half of it is going to be 2.5. Half of it on this end is 2.5, right? So I'm going to come up by on that line. So this is where 2.5 is going to fall in for me. So on this line here, what I'm going to do is to take the measurement from my front crotch. It depends on you. If you're more on the smaller side, then your measurement from your crotch will also be on the smaller side. So but I'm on the bigger side, so I have 3 inches from my front crotch. I'm going to add that 3 inches here to the top part of my pant. So I'm going to mark that. So the distance between these two here is 3 inches. So I'm going to mark it here, and then what I'm going to do is from this point of this 3 inches, the top part here, I'm going to just connect it all the way here. So now I'm going to move my front seam aside, and then I'm going to move this here. This is just how they cut pants. Someone was asking me why they marked this line this way, but that's how they cut it, so that because your butt is at the back and it dips in, so that's why the back of your pant is supposed to dip in this way. So I'm going to just mark it this way all the way to the top here. Sorry, let me do that again so that it's straight. So this is now the back of my pant, and then from here now you're going to put in your crotch. So this is the crotch for the back of my pant, sorry. And then what you're going to do now after that is to take it this way. This 2.5 that you subtracted from the hip of your pant, because if you look now, we've subtracted 2.5 from this part here when we're connecting this. So now you're going to extend and put back that 2.5 here. Or if you can't do it that way, what you can do is just measure your waist, what you have on your waist here. For me, that is 11. Draw a straight line extending the waist of your pants all the way, and then put your tape at this top part here, and then put back that 11 inches, right? So you see, put your tape at the point here, and then draw back that 11 inches of your waist, so that your back will also have the same waist as the front. So you see, this is where my 2.5 was supposed to be. You see, that 2.5 is still the same method as taking it, the same measurement you took out when you marked this here, and bringing it and putting it back here. Or you can just measure your waist here, and then whatever you got, take it and then find where it fits in on this straight line, right? And then mark it. You still get it as the same thing. So after that, what you're going to do is to come down on your waist, on your hip line, and add about 1 inch, right? And then come down on your thigh line, add 1 inch here, all the way to the end, and complete it like in a straight line all the way. Distance of 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch is what you're going to add in here. And then on this top part here, you're just going to connect the 1 inch that you marked to your hip, to your waist, sorry. So you're going to just connect the 1 inch from my hip line. I'm just going to blend it into this part here. And then after that, mark the one on this side too. So after that, the next thing you're going to do is to blend this in here to this line. Just blend it into your pants here. So I'm just going to blend in this crotch, my back crotch, into this line. Or if you still want a very wide end of your pants, normal palazzo pant is supposed to look like, right? But I want mine just to fit a little bit on my thigh and then flay out and down. So I'm just going to connect it, blend it in all the way into this pant. So guys, at this point, you're supposed to go back in and put in your zip allowance for your pants, right? So you're going to go in and add in about half an inch all the way to the back. Not half an inch, 1.5, because this is for a jumpsuit. So you're going to add in about 1.5 here, and then you're going to go ahead and cut it out. So guys, this is what your back panel is supposed to look like. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to put in my back dart. So your back dart, how you're going to put it is from the distance of this end, and then you're going to mark your 4 inches, right? So you're going to just mark your 4 inches down, and then your dart at the back might be about 6 inches long, half an inch on each side, and then you're going to connect it. Your dart at the back cannot be straight, it has to go this direction. So you're going to measure it from the distance of your center back here, distance here, not from your zip allowance. So now the next thing you're going to do is to just start joining everything together. As you can see, I've coupled everything together, and this is the inside of it here. So basically you're just going to go ahead, put in your dart for the top part of your top, and then you're going to put in the dart for the top bottom part, and then you join the two together. That's what I did, because as you can see, my side seam goes all the way down. I like to have my seam this way so that in case if I need to take it in, I can just go ahead and take it in all the way on the inside. So that's how I join the front, the top to the bottom of the front, then the top of the back to the bottom, and then I join the two sides together to close it up. And you can see I use bias to finish up the sides of the top. So you can use lining, you can use bias, but I use bias for mine. So you see the back also, and then you see my dart at the back. So basically I'm back to show you guys how to put in the neckline. So I already have a detailed video on how to do this, so I'm just going to run through it. So that 5 inches that we measured from the neckline, because the shoulder measurement doesn't because remember this thing here, your shoulder normally has like, so guys, remember this, your shoulder slant, right? And then the curve of your neckline. But this sleeve here doesn't have any, you normally leave half an inch to join the shoulder, but remember we chipped off our shoulder and then we're left with something like this, right? We chipped off this part of the shoulder and now we are left with just the neckline. So we are going to subtract half an inch of joining this shoulder. We're going to subtract it from that 5, both in front and both at the back. So 0.05 is what you subtract from each of them. So for me, I'm going to have 4.5, 4.5, right? So 4.5 plus 4.5, that's going to be 9. And remember, this is on one side, so you're going to have 2 of that. So 9 plus 9 for me, that's going to be 18. So my strap here is going to be 18 inches of width, right? So after that, what you're going to do now is to take it the way it is now. You can just go ahead, maybe ironing stay if you want to. The width I'm using here is about 4 inches, or if you want, you can use 3.5 if you don't want it too high. And then what you're going to do now is to take it this way, get your neck, you're going to find the center. So you can go just fold it into 2, find the center. So I've notched the center, fold your neckline into 2 also, find the center and notch it, right? So what you can do now is to just go ahead, the way you've done it now, you're just going to go ahead and then take this way and sew it down, right? Sew it down all the way here to this side. Sew this one all the way to this side here. When you're done, you will find that it will stand. And then after sewing the one in front, you're going to skip the side, right? And then take the end, the very end of this here, and then go back to the back and sew it also, right? It's not immediately after attaching the neckline in front, then you go and then join this one to the side. No, just skip it and then go to the end and finish up with the end. Like go to the back here, join this end here and sew it. Whatever that you're supposed to have, maybe about 1 inch or half an inch at this end here, whatever that is left there, just fold it in and flip it to sew it down. And then you go ahead and put in your zip. You're going to do it for the 2 sides of the back. So guys, this is it here. So all you have to do is, after attaching it, so you see what it looks like when you attach the band. So you just have to go ahead and top stitch it and make sure the flap is facing up. So, and then this part, you see why I was saying you're supposed to have like 1 inch or so at this center part of the sleeve. So that's why once you attach it all the way to the center, finish the center, skip the whole thing, go back to the end and attach it from the zip allowance back, because if you continue stitching it, you don't know how much you're supposed to need for this space. So you will not know until you go back to the zip end and then attach it back to this point, and then whatever is left, you top stitch it this way. So you see how I folded it up and then stitched it facing up. So I'm still going to go back and stitch it all the way down on the inside. So you see, this is what it looks like here. This is the jumpsuit here. see the bottom part here. So all I have to do is just to fold the ends here, and it will be done. So basically this is it here. I didn't put pocket in mine, but if you want to put pocket, I already have several videos on how to do that, so you can put pocket in yours. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please subscribe, and yeah, bye.